They don't shout, they don't threaten, they whisper. And suddenly, your world bends around their will. Manipulators don't conquer through force, they conquer through understanding. They read fear like a book, guilt like a language, and desire like a map. To them, people aren't people, they're pieces. Movable, replaceable, predictable. Every smile they offer is a calculation. Every silence, a weapon. They don't break you, they make you break yourself. And by the time you realize it, you're already defending them. Because the most dangerous predator isn't the one who hides in the dark. It's the one who teaches you to love the darkness. Manipulation isn't chaos, it's architecture. Every manipulator builds a structure inside your mind, brick by brick, emotion by emotion. They understand something most people refuse to see, that human beings don't seek truth. They seek comfort, validation, and belonging. They exploit this weakness with surgical precision. They don't need power. They only need access. Access to your fears, your secrets, your hopes. And once they have that, they own you without ever touching you. It happens in relationships, in friendships, in leadership, even in love. It's not always loud or violent. Sometimes it's quiet, kind, intoxicating. That's what makes it so dangerous. To understand the manipulator's mind, we must step into their logic, the cold, calculated way they see the world. Because to them, morality is not a boundary, it's merely a tool. Control. It's the first addiction that doesn't need a substance. Every manipulator is, at their core, a control addict, not because they love power, but because they fear powerlessness. The story never begins with dominance. It begins with insecurity. A child ignored, a lover betrayed, a person humiliated in silence. Somewhere in that quiet humiliation, the seed of control is planted, and it grows into something colder, a belief that emotions are weapons and connection is a battlefield. Sigmund Freud once said, "Unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways." For a manipulator, this ugliness evolves into strategy. They learn to smile instead of scream, to study instead of feel. They discover that to survive, they must shape perception, not reality. Because perception, after all, is the easiest thing to bend. History is full of such minds. Niccolo Machiavelli, in The Prince, didn't teach cruelty. He diagnosed it. He understood that humans are led not by truth, but by fear and reward. And the manipulator learns this instinctively. They observe how crowds follow confidence, not conscience. How lies told calmly sound more believable than truths spoken in panic. Think of Joseph Goebbels, the architect of Nazi propaganda. He didn't conquer through violence alone. He conquered through narrative. He knew that if you control what people feel about reality, you don't need to control reality itself. Every dictator, every toxic leader, every emotional predator carries this same understanding. Truth is fragile, but emotion is eternal. On a smaller scale, the same pattern unfolds in everyday life. The partner who guilt trips you into staying, the friend who turns every favor into a debt, the boss who praises you just enough to keep you loyal, but never enough to make you leave. They all operate under one silent rule: control disguised as care. The manipulator learns early that humans crave meaning, and meaning is the easiest leash to hold. They don't force obedience, they engineer it. They study how you react to disappointment, how you justify pain, how you rationalize kindness. They make you feel seen, then slowly make you depend on being seen. That's how control begins. Not with dominance, but with understanding. Philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote, "Whoever fights monsters should see to it that he does not become a monster." But the manipulator never fought monsters. They studied them. And in that study, they became something else: A creature who doesn't destroy others to feed on pain, but to avoid their own. Because behind every manipulative act is a simple truth. The manipulator doesn't trust love to stay unless it's controlled. They don't believe truth can protect them, so they build lies instead. And over time, their empathy rots into calculation, their fear hardens into charisma, and their need for safety transforms into dominance. This is where manipulation is born, not in evil, but in fear, refined, weaponized, and turned into art. A manipulator's greatest weapon isn't intellect, it's intuition. They read human emotion with the precision of a surgeon and the detachment of a scientist. While others speak to connect, they speak to measure. Every reaction, every pause, every flicker in your eyes. Data. They don't dominate by shouting. They dominate by understanding. Because control doesn't require chains when someone hands you the key to their emotions. Psychologist Robert Cialdini, in his studies on persuasion, identified 6 principles that drive human behavior: reciprocity, commitment, social proof, authority, liking, and scarcity. The manipulator doesn't just know these principles, they live them. They mirror your tone to gain trust, give small favors to plant debt, create urgency to make you act without thinking. Every compliment, every confession, every coincidence is a design. They use empathy as camouflage because nothing disarms faster than feeling understood. They listen deeply, not because they care, but because silence gives them the map. When you speak, they learn your pain points. When you stop, they learn your boundaries. And when they finally act, they don't push, they nudge. Just enough for you to think it was your own idea. History has seen empires built on this quiet form of control. Think of Rasputin in the Russian court. A mystic, a healer, a whisperer. He never ruled by title or by sword, yet he bent the royal family's will. He understood that people don't follow logic. They follow emotion masked as destiny. That same energy fuels modern politics, media, and even corporate power. Propaganda isn't about lies, it's about emotional rhythm. It tells you what to fear, what to hate, what to hope for. It frames the world in binaries, good and evil, us and them, because the human mind craves simplicity over truth. A skilled manipulator knows, if you make people feel, they'll stop thinking. And once they stop thinking, they're yours. But manipulation doesn't always wear a villain's face. Sometimes it's the lover who says, "You'd be nothing without me." Sometimes it's the friend who twists pity into obligation. Sometimes it's the leader who preaches unity while feeding division. They all use the same instruments: fear, guilt, admiration, shame. Emotions become levers. Words become switches. They don't remove your freedom, they make you offer it. As Carl Jung once wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." A manipulator knows most people never do. They build their control inside that fear of self-awareness. They reflect back the image you wish to see, then quietly reshape it until you no longer know who you are without them. Over time, this creates a psychological cage. You're not locked in by force, you're locked in by need. You justify, you explain, you defend. Because deep down, the manipulator's greatest trick isn't changing how you see them, it's changing how you see yourself. By the time their work is done, you no longer question them. You question your own perception. That's how a predator hides in plain sight. Not by erasing your freedom, but by teaching you to confuse obedience with love and dependence with meaning. A manipulator cannot exist in silence. Their power needs an audience. Eyes to see them, hearts to deceive, and minds to mold. Without witnesses, control loses its meaning, because power, in its purest form, is performative. Every manipulator is, at heart, an actor. Their life is a stage, and every interaction is a scene. They wear charm like a costume, sincerity like a mask. and the world, unaware, becomes their theater. The French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre once said, "Hell is other people." For the manipulator, this is reversed. Heaven is other people, because others are the mirrors through which their illusion survives. They craft identities like a playwright crafts characters, each tailored to the audience before them. To the strong, they appear loyal. To the broken, they appear understanding. To the ambitious, they appear as opportunity. They don't manipulate for pleasure alone, they manipulate to exist. Their identity isn't fixed, it's reflected. Without others to control, they face a terrifying emptiness, themselves. History has seen this theater play out in grand form. Consider the cult leaders, Jim Jones, Charles Manson, or Shoko Asahara. Each began as a charismatic figure offering hope and belonging. They read the loneliness of their followers, the hunger for meaning, the need to believe in something greater. And they gave them a script, a role to play in a divine story. Jones didn't command obedience, he directed devotion. He made his followers actors in a tragedy disguised as salvation. And when the final act came, the mass suicide in Jonestown, they weren't victims of violence, but of narrative. They believed they were dying for purpose. That's the manipulator's masterpiece, to turn pain into performance and submission into applause. In modern life, the same stage exists, just smaller, subtler, digital. Social media is a breeding ground for this theater of control. Influencers, politicians, even ordinary people learn to curate identity, to perform perfection, to control perception. The manipulative mind thrives here because visibility itself becomes validation. They feed on attention, not affection. And the more eyes they attract, the more real they feel. Every like becomes a hit of psychological oxygen. Every comment, a mirror confirming their existence. It's not about connection, it's about control through illusion. As philosopher Guy Debord wrote in The Society of the Spectacle, everything that was once directly lived has become mere representation. For manipulators, this isn't a critique, it's a guidebook. Yet behind the performance lies fragility. The manipulator's stage must always stay lit, or their identity begins to dissolve. They dread silence, because silence means reflection. They fear solitude, because solitude means truth. So they keep performing. The charming friend, the selfless lover, the visionary leader. But every act requires an audience. And the moment that audience stops believing, the manipulator collapses. The predator, stripped of the gaze that sustains them, becomes what they always feared most: insignificant. That's the paradox of control. The manipulator seems powerful, but they're imprisoned by their own performance. Their freedom depends on your attention. Their strength depends on your belief. Without an audience, their empire turns to dust. Every mask eventually cracks. Even the most skilled manipulator cannot outrun the weight of their own performance. What begins as control slowly decays into dependence, not on others, but on the illusion itself. Because once you live through deception long enough, truth becomes poison. And the manipulator, the self-proclaimed architect of others' minds, becomes the prisoner of their own creation. The psychologist Carl Rogers once wrote, "The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. But a manipulator never accepts themselves. They don't build masks to deceive others. They build them to escape themselves. Each lie is a small act of self-protection, each manipulation a desperate attempt to hide the void underneath. For a time, it works. The world responds. People believe, admire, obey. The manipulator's ego grows stronger, their confidence colder. But slowly, the fractures appear. They begin to forget which version of themselves is real. They lie reflexively, even when there's nothing to gain. They test loyalty not out of curiosity, but out of fear. Their need for control becomes compulsive, and their relationships become mirrors of that paranoia. History has seen this collapse many times. Consider Richard Nixon, a man whose obsession with control led to his downfall. He didn't lose power because his enemies defeated him. He lost it because his own deceit became unbearable. He began spying, recording, distrusting, not just others, but reality itself. The Watergate scandal wasn't born from malice alone, but from fear. The same fear that lives in every manipulator, the terror of losing the image they've built. Or think of Elizabeth Holmes, the founder of Theranos, a vision of brilliance and confidence until the illusion shattered. Her manipulation of investors, employees, and patients wasn't driven purely by greed. It was the hunger to be something greater than she was, even if it meant constructing a lie too heavy to hold. And when the truth surfaced, the mask consumed the face beneath it. Psychologically, this collapse is inevitable. When every interaction is performance, authenticity becomes unbearable. When every truth is a tool, reality becomes meaningless. The manipulator starts to experience emotional dissonance, a deep internal split between who they pretend to be and who they are. This is the slow erosion of self. At first, they lose empathy. Then they lose trust, then identity. They cannot rest because rest requires honesty. They cannot love because love requires surrender. And surrender to them feels like death. Friedrich Nietzsche warned, "When you stare into the abyss stares back at you." For the manipulator, that abyss isn't the world, it's themselves. The emptiness they've been avoiding through control now watches them from within. Some try to rebuild. They seek therapy, introspection, even redemption. But the process is brutal. To heal, they must dismantle the very traits that once made them powerful. To be genuine, they must sacrifice the mask that once kept them safe. It's a psychological death, and most cannot endure it. Others simply double down, lying harder, performing louder, manipulating deeper. Until one day, the illusion fails completely. The people they control see through them, and the audience disappears. When that happens, the manipulator finally faces the one person they've never been able to control, themselves. And in that confrontation lies their quiet destruction. Because the mind of a manipulator is not sustained by cruelty, it's sustained by belief. Once that belief dies, the predator starves. The manipulator is not an alien among us. They are not monsters hiding in the shadows. They are human, painfully human, and that's what makes them terrifying. Because every manipulator begins where we all begin, with a desire to be seen, to be safe, to be loved. But where most of us learn surrender, they learn control. Where we seek connection, they seek protection. The difference is not origin, but evolution. They simply took a universal fear, the fear of vulnerability, and turned it into a weapon. Philosopher Hannah Arendt once wrote, "The sad truth is that most evil is done by people who never make up their minds to be good or evil." Manipulation isn't always born from malice. Sometimes it's born from survival. The manipulator doesn't wake up choosing darkness. They adapt to it. And in doing so, they reveal something unsettling about human nature. That control feels safer than honesty, and illusion feels easier than truth. Every one of us, in small ways, manipulates. We lie to protect feelings. We flatter to gain favor. We withhold to maintain power. The manipulator merely perfects what the rest of us practice in fragments. They are a mirror, a distorted reflection of our quiet compromises. In history and myth, the manipulator archetype is everywhere. The serpent in the garden, whispering doubt. Loki, the trickster god, turning chaos into order through deceit. Machiavelli's prince, who bends morality for stability. They remind us that manipulation is not just psychological, it's philosophical. It raises the oldest question: is control the opposite of chaos, or just another form of it? When we manipulate, even in small ways, We play God for a moment, deciding how truth should appear, who deserves to know it, and who should believe it. It's a temptation older than morality itself, because to control perception is to touch the edges of creation. That's why manipulation feels powerful and why it destroys. But perhaps the darkest revelation is this: the manipulator only exists because others allow them to. Their power is sustained by trust, by silence, by the human tendency to look away when something feels wrong. Every time we mistake charm for goodness, confidence for truth, or suffering for depth, we feed the predator. In relationships, in politics, in culture, the manipulator thrives not because they are strong, but because we are willing. We want to believe in heroes, in saviors, in certainty. And they give us exactly that, until we can no longer tell the difference between comfort and control. To study the manipulator is to study ourselves, because the darkness we fear in them is the same darkness that whispers inside us. It's the part of us that wants to win the argument, not understand it. The part that values being right over being kind. The part that hides the truth, not to harm others, but to survive them. The predator's mind is not foreign. It's familiar. They are not the shadow that hunts us. They are the shadow within us. And perhaps the only way to truly disarm them is to confront the manipulator that lives quietly in our own reflection. We often look at manipulators as predators, cold, calculating, inhuman. But the truth is darker than that. They're not born from some alien evil. They're born from the same soil as empathy, love, and fear. The difference lies not in what they feel, but in what they refuse to feel. They are proof of what happens when emotion becomes armor instead of connection, when survival replaces sincerity, when control becomes the only language left for safety. And if we're honest, that language isn't foreign to us. It's the same instinct that makes us hide our pain behind confidence. The same voice that whispers, "Don't let them see you weak." In small doses, we all wear masks, but the manipulator is the one who never takes theirs off. In every interaction, there's a power dynamic, visible or invisible. Someone always leads, someone always follows. What we rarely question is why. Why we give our trust so easily. Why we equate charisma with truth. Why we mistake dominance for certainty. We think manipulation is something that happens to us, but often it's something we participate in. Because deep down, many of us would rather be deceived beautifully than face a brutal truth. We crave illusion, the comfort of meaning, the warmth of belonging, the simplicity of believing someone knows the way. The manipulator simply gives us what we secretly want, until the cost becomes unbearable. In that sense, manipulation is not just psychological, it's existential. It exposes the fragility of human consciousness, our desperate need to be seen, our fear of insignificance, our endless hunger for validation. The manipulator doesn't invent these needs. They illuminate them. They hold up a mirror, and what we see in it isn't their cruelty, but our own dependence. The German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer once said, "Every man takes the limits of his own field of vision for the limits of the world." The manipulator exploits exactly that blindness. They don't change the world around us. They shrink our vision of it until we no longer realize we're in a cage. But the moment we recognize this, the moment we see how control seduces us, the power begins to fade. Not just theirs, but ours too. Because true awareness demands humility, to accept that we're all capable of manipulation, that we've all, in some way, shaped reality to fit our comfort. The difference between us and the manipulator is not innocence, it's acknowledgement. We can confront our darkness, they cannot. So the question is not how to avoid manipulators, but how to stop becoming one. How to live with truth even when it hurts, how to connect without controlling, how to love without owning. And maybe that's what the manipulator's existence teaches us in the end. that darkness isn't meant to be feared or glorified, but understood. Because only when we face the shadows within us can we finally step out of the ones cast by others. In the end, the manipulator doesn't win. They don't lose either. They simply remain. When the audience leaves and the stage goes dark, there's no applause, only silence. A silence too honest to control, too empty to escape. Because beneath every calculated smile, beneath every perfect lie, there is always a quiet truth waiting to be heard. No one truly owns another mind. Control is temporary. Illusion is fragile. And when both collapse, all that's left is the echo of a voice that once believed it could rewrite reality. The manipulator fades. The silence stays. And the darkness, it doesn't end. It just changes shape.